Welcome to FYI. I'm Barry ZeVan, and this is my Scottish bonnet. It's not a tam, it's a bonnet. And the reason for showing it is to say we're going to be talking a lot about things Scottish today with Debra Crane Lance, who is a member of the St. Andrews Society, of which I'm president. St. Andrews Society of Minnesota, I should say. There are a lot of St. Andrews societies throughout the country. And Debra Crane Lance is also...
I'm a board member on the Scottish American Center. We're based in Minneapolis.
That's wonderful. Well, welcome, Debra.
Thank you.
And this program now is being broadcast during Tartan Week.
Yes.
Here in Minnesota. Tell us all about Tartan Week. It's an annual event, but...
It is an annual event. It is coming up. It will be celebrated here in Minnesota starting April 6th, which is a Friday. We have a party celebrating the beginning and launch of this event. It's at O'Gara's, and that will be from 5 until 7:30. So we have activities set out throughout the entire week. We have Saturday, April 7th, we have the Scottish Ramble, which is downtown St. Paul at the Landmark Center. We have also Saturday that evening, April 7th, the McAllister Pike Band will have their spring concert. Continuing the celebration on Sunday, we have Cricking of the Tartans. That is sponsored by the St. Andrews Society, and that will be held at St. Mark's Episcopal Cathedral at 2 o'clock. Then we get a day off on Monday. Tuesday, we have a pub sing at Merlin's Pub, and that's in Minneapolis, and that is from 6:30 until 9:30. Another day of rest. Then we have Thursday Scotch tasting, and that will be at the Mall of America. It's sponsored with VAMFAS, and they will be presenting 6 scotches that are very delightful, very tasty, and very unique. We will have an opportunity to sample some scotches and learn a little bit about that. And then just beyond our Tartan Week celebration, there actually is a Celtic rock concert. It's a Tartan rock concert at the Hook and Ladder Theater. Tempest will be the band playing, and they will be performing, I believe it's at the Minnehaha Avenue at the Hook and Ladder Theater. And then even beyond Tartan Week, we still have a large Scottish celebration, and that's July 21st. That's the Minnesota Scottish Fair, but that's farther out. Right now we're focusing really on celebrating Tartan Week.
That's wonderful, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to you or some other people about Scottish Fair when that time arrives.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which, since we're taping this in late March and this is being seen in early April, why we have a few weeks to go.
Save the date.
The Scottish Fair, which is absolutely phenomenal. It's wonderful.
It is.
Well, things Scottish are very, to me, they're very wonderful too. To me, Scotland, I've had the honor and the privilege to visit that country 4 times. And my favorite village is a little village which I discussed with you before the show started, the village of Luss, which is on the banks of Loch Lomond. And you can't even describe it. Photographically even, it doesn't do it justice. All these little cottages and swans on the lake, and Ben Lomond, the highest mountain in Scotland, which across the river, across the lake. The irony is that it is so beautiful there, but then 15 miles west is the village of Helensburgh on the River Clyde. And at Helensburgh, they have slot machines and Safeways and TGI Fridays, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of like that movie in It's a Wonderful Life. It reverts back to all this, razzmatazz, and then 15 miles to the east is this little village out of heaven. And anyway, once you've been to Scotland, you can't help describe it. Maybe
Right.
Tell us some of your experiences.
Well, I had an opportunity to travel with my husband through Scotland, and we spent 2 weeks. The first week, we arrived in Edinburgh and had an opportunity to see the various tourist sites, the Edinburgh Castle. We saw a number of old buildings, and that's the thing that really struck me, was how old and how ancient that country is and how far back that history is. Tartan Week we were celebrating on April 6th, and the reason is because in 1320 the Scots had been fighting with the English, and the English had dominated, and they were asserting their authority over the Scots, and the Scots were able to declare their independence. So that was in 1320. You can go to this country, you can go and see the sites, you can go to Stirling Castle and see the areas and the places where the ancient kings lived. So we spent that time there. Then we went out into the Highlands, and they are breathtaking. And the time I went there, I feel like I left a part of myself there, and I'm still there. It's amazing. And then we went and traveled to the Isle of Skye. We were there for 2 days, and it is truly a misty island. You feel as though you were in such a remote area, and you can be silent and just hear silence. You don't hear planes, you don't hear cars. It's amazing. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. Want to remind the audience again, too, that this is being broadcast during the week of Tartan Week, so if some of the dates that have been mentioned have already passed, we apologize, but at least you know what happened. The Tartans, they identify, of course, people with each clan, etc. This is a Stuart Royal tie, by the way, that I bought at Edinburgh Castle.
Yes, indeed.
High up on that hill in the gift shop. But it's a very impressive castle, of course, and as you said, it was extremely important in history because they fought off all the foes from that high hill. They could see everybody coming.
Yes, they have a cannon up there, and they call it, I can't remember if it's Big Bess or it's a giant cannon. And it amazes me to see how large it is. It'll go out over the city 3 or 4 miles when it's shot. Obviously, don't shoot it out anymore. But as a fortress, it is very defensible. And yet, and in spite of that, the height and the fact that it's on the top of a volcano and you can't really tunnel in, you have to go up the side. They were still defeated at least 2 times, and the castle was breached.
Wow, those people who defeated them were very determined.
They were very determined.
I didn't know this. There's a lot, of course, I don't know about almost everything. But we have our own Minnesota tartan. Do you want to tell us about that? It's right here.
Absolutely. So I have the Minnesota tartan here. And this was designed and developed for the state of Minnesota by the Scottish community. And I spoke with the organizer, Jackie Johnston. She and Babs Humphreys, who is also a member of the St. Andrews Society, they got together back in 1991 or so. And they found out that there were other states that had tartans. And so they thought, well, Minnesota should have a tartan. We have a Scottish community. Let's do this, and let's present and develop a tartan and present it to the people of Minnesota. And so that's what they've done. They've developed, now I have the dress tartan. There are 2 styles. There's the dress and then there's the informal. The dress here has the whiter background. The primary colors that are in our tartan are blue, which is for the lakes and streams in our state, the green for our forests. There is a fuchsia, which is this lighter pink color, and that is for the pink lady slipper. And then there's yellow and gold, which is representing the corn and the wheat fields. And then we have the white and the ivory, which is for the white that you find in the loon. And then we have black also running through the tartan, and that also is for the loon and the roads, and I believe that's all that I know right now.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is a lot. So they had a committee, they organized it, they selected, they had a number of tartan designs that they had, and selected this one. That was back in let me check here, it was back in 2001 when they came up with the idea. They developed it, it took a year to design, and then in 2002, they presented it on Tartan Day at the state capitol when they were celebrating their 4th year of Tartan Day.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Babs Humphrey because Babs is the reason I joined when I came back to Minnesota from being away for 10 years, back on Channel 11. And I got a call from Babs because she had been involved in broadcasting too and so forth. But anyway, she said, why don't you join our St. Andrews Society? So I've been a member since 1984, and been very, very proud of it. If I may, I want to describe how I got interested in Scotland. I will tell you, being president of the society, but not one drop of Scottish blood in me. It's for people who are not necessarily Scottish or of Scottish descent, but for people who are also interested in Scotland and love it and want to promote things that are Scottish. So a friend of mine, who shall be nameless, got me interested in Scotland when I was on TV in Las Vegas back in the late 1960s. And she had been born on the Queen Mary when it was still sailing, and that was in 1938. And just got me so interested in things Scottish. So through the years, we kept in touch and so forth and so on, and visited, but indeed, that's what got me going. Yeah, and she had quite a history. Her husband and she owned about half of Prince Edward Island, one of the provinces in Canada, and they were into cattle, etc. But his father was the co-discoverer of insulin, so there's quite a history there. And then I know her father was the co-founder of the Chase Manhattan Bank with David Rockefeller, and so a very, very deep history into so much. And actually, she had bought the last castle that was ever built in Scotland, just east of Perth, 6 miles east of Perth, and converted it into apartments.
Oh my gosh! Well,
but
the castle's preserved.
Yeah, but she didn't have to add air conditioning.
Yes.
Heat, yes. No air conditioning, not in northern Scotland.
No.
So, and they have, interestingly enough, in my opinion, it's interesting, they have a ski hill just south of Edinburgh.
I've been there.
And it's a lot of it on plastic. Well, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you ski down it?
No. It was summertime, and I was on a bus ride, and we drove right by it. But I had to laugh.
Off to the right.
Yes, exactly.
So you're talking about Scottish whiskies. I once, one of the trips to Scotland, I visited the J&B Whiskey Factory in Alexandria,
Okay.
just a little north of Glasgow. And pardon me for all this, but I just have to gush a little bit here. It was in the wintertime, and so there were very few people there. In fact, there was nobody there for a tour, so the fellow who was giving the tours, he said, "Oh, you're lucky." He said, "I'll take you even farther in and about the manufactory." So he said, "You'll notice there's quite a bit spilled on the floor." He said, "We spilled more on the floor than goes into the bottles." He said, "But when it leaves here, that's when it becomes expensive." He said, "It costs at that time." He said, "It costs us 50 cents a bottle to manufacture every bottle," and he said, "By the time it hits the stores, it's $9 or $12 or whatever it happens to be." So.
Oh, that's fun.
But you could get drunk just breathing in that building.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's whiskey is strong. Sampling it is good, and I've been to 2 or 3 tastings. Well, they do tastings locally. There are quite a few here in the Twin Cities. But I've been to Scotland, and I've visited one of the distilleries over there, and it's one of those things where you make sure you have a designated driver, because they're a little generous with their drams. Yes, yeah. Their wee dram might be a little generous. Yes.
Yeah, about the size of this.
Not
really.
They like it.
Yeah. Did you ever learn how or why Scotland became such a whiskey manufacturing country?
I have no idea. That is one of the things that I have not researched. I've researched Tartan a wee bit, and I know some of the traditional history, what king succeeded what king, and what battles they fought. But the origination of the whiskey, that I cannot say. I do not know.
Well, during Tartan Week, there'll be plenty of opportunity
Oh,
to
yes.
keep tasting and tasting and tasting.
Yes.
Yeah, the tartans themselves, I mean, Scotland has such a rich history anyway, but the Romans built Hadrian's Wall,
Yes.
and when you drive from England into Scotland, at least for me, the first time I drove in, of course you can see it crossing the border, but the Romans knew what they were doing, because the difference between the British countryside and what begins at the south end of Scotland,
Right.
it's like night and day.
Yeah. They were the Northmen, and they were terrible, and they were very, very strong fighters. They were very fierce fighters. They fought with all they had. I have to say, I think some of that tradition has carried into our present day, because my husband's family, their national origin is Scotland. And it's so funny because they will fight like crazy among themselves, and they're very determined, and they're always right. And then all of a sudden, somebody else will say, well, we're right. And then they all go, well, no, you're not. And so you have this clan bickering and fighting, and they just like to fight for some reason. But they are very fierce.
Tough people.
They are very tough, yes.
Did you have any problem with the language?
Oh, yeah. I have somewhat a good ear for foreign languages, and so I was okay. But I remember we were in a wee pub, and it was a horrible, not a horrible, but it had this horror theme. And so we had just toured Stirling Castle, and we came out. It was my husband, myself, and two friends. And so we go in. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there is a gentleman who has probably been drinking since 11, and he is talking and telling us about the Scottish games and the Highland games that we should go to, which are in Braemar. That was the only word I could pick up out of his conversation. He was very animated, and he was from Glasgow, which is a little heavier dialect anyway. And I knew he was talking about those games, and that's about it.
It's interesting you would say that, because the first time I encountered a Scottish brogue,
Yes.
if you call it a brogue, I don't think so, but just someone explaining something to you with their accent. I was looking for directions, and it was in Glasgow.
Yes.
And pulled over, and I said, can you tell me how to get to such and such? And as you said, I mean, he went on for about 30 seconds, and I didn't understand one word he said, not one.
No.
and I said, thank you. And that was it.
And just drive on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the other side of the road, too.
Yes, yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, that was, so the first time I went, I traveled with a colleague from law school, and so her family was Scottish, and we drove up past Balmoral Castle up into the Highlands, and she is driving, and as you're going up on these really tiny roads, and they're really meant for one car. And so she's driving along, and I'm looking down, and there's the ditch, and then there's this tumble down to the bottom of the mountain, really. And I'm a flatlander here in Minnesota. It's very, very flat. And she's like, how are we doing? And I just didn't say anything. I said, you're good. You're good. We made it, but it was terrifying. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is scary.
It
Very
is,
scary.
yeah.
And in some of the roads, too, as you know, they not only have hedgerows, they have walls
Yes.
that are, you know, all those stones piled up, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be pretty brave to
Yeah,
drive over there.
To drive, yes.
Yeah. Now, for Tartan Week, is it encouraged that some people who are not even of Scottish descent come even in Scottish attire?
Oh, absolutely. We always say if you have the inclination to be Scottish, it's like everybody's Irish on St. Patrick's Day. And so absolutely everybody's Scottish during Tartan Week. And we welcome official tartans, whether they're official or if they're just something that looks like a plaid. It doesn't matter, because we're there to celebrate and enjoy the Scottish culture and all that's been contributed. So if you go to the party on Friday night, or if you go to the Scottish Ramble on Saturday, which I will note is this will be the concluding year for the Ramble, sadly, I know. So we're hoping that, maybe someone will carry the torch and carry it forward, but this year is officially the final year. Much like the Highland Games, we had the Minnesota Games at McAllister for a number of years, and after they concluded, we had a number of organizers who said, yes, let's continue this. This is a really fun family event, and so we'll see. So that's the ramble. You know, there's a pub sing. Stop by Merlin's Pub, because those sings are really a joyous event, and it's an opportunity for a jam session. Maybe it's spontaneous, so you never know what's going to happen. So
Merlin's is a fun place.
it is.
It certainly is.
Yes.
Maybe you can describe once again what the ramble actually is.
Well, the Scottish Ramble originally started, I believe it was either 30 or 40 years ago, and it was organized just as a 2-day event, Saturday and Sunday in February, and it was just a way to kind of snub the winter, have men in kilts walking around and enjoying the winter. So it was organized and placed at Landmark Center. It's been ongoing ever since. It's a family event, and so there's a small fee. I believe it's like $5 to enter. But there are pipe bands that will come in and perform. They'll do a few songs. The Scottish Country Dance Group, they will do a performance. There is usually audience participation with those dances. There's an opportunity to sample some of the local Scottish cuisine. So you can have a bridie, or you could sample some local beer, some sodas. They also have Clan Tartan, and they're a reenactment group from the 1600s. And so you'll have an opportunity to see some of the ways the Scottish encampments were organized, and were able to just how things were sort of set up at that time. So anyway, the Scottish Ramble has been doing that for a long time, and there will be pipe bands, there will be some Highland dancers, there are vendors, so if you're interested in getting a tie, a tartan tie or a tam, there are vendors there that you can make your purchases and just soak it in, enjoy and relax. There's a lot of good music there, and there's a lot of entertainment, so it's a fun day.
Well, I was saying in the beginning, of course, this is a bonnet, not a tam.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the difference between a bonnet and a tam, do you think?
I don't think there is a difference, because the
Because
tam...
it's already been beaten into my head many times.
It's a
No,
bonnet.
this is not a tam. This is a bonnet. And I
I-
said, okay, fine
Well,
with me.
Maybe it's the ribbon on the trim on it.
Possibly in the back there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hangs down.
Yeah.
I'm not putting it on. I don't want to mess up all my hair.
There we go.
Yes, all 3 hairs. Yeah, I just want to digress, and if I may.
Sure.
It's such a joy to have audiences watching, even all over the world because of YouTube. But we were discussing before the show, ever since this program began, people have seen a big black spot on the top of my head. Mm-hmm. And somebody said, why don't you explain what that is? Well, now there's an opportune time, because I was going to have some basal cells, skin cancer removed, and that's what this is on top. And a doctor came in to me this past week and said, there's a pill now that gets rid of it. We don't have to cut anymore. We don't have to do biopsies or anything else. So now I'm on this pill, which is a miracle. And soon, when we open the show, nobody will see the head, and I won't have had put makeup on. So
Yes.
I think it's wonderful.
It's amazing, and it's amazing that you, because I have enough friends where they are absolutely sure that they are wearing a hat for protection, which you do. You want to be able to do that. But to not have to go through a surgery and have any kind of invasive surgery, that is amazing.
Yeah.
So
I've had dermatological surgery before, which has worked out very, very well. But if you don't have to go through it,
yes.
fine, take a pill for everything.
Yeah, work with your body, though. I'm sure it's working naturally to remove those cells. And,
Yes. It works on basal cells, does not work on squamous cells.
All right.
But the doctor said to me, you don't have any squamous cells, so shut up.
You're good.
You're fine.
You're
Yes.
absolutely.
So Debra, would you encourage people who may not even have an interest in Scotland or things Scottish to possibly join your group or our St. Andrews Society group?
Sure. There are a number of Scottish groups within the Twin Cities area, and there's the Twin Cities Scottish Club. You do not have to be of Scottish descent. You just have to enjoy a good time, and they're more of a family-based organization. So they try to do activities with children and adults, and it's really a fun group. There's the Royal Scottish Country Dance Society. That's how I originally was introduced to the community. I went to Scotland, I came back to Minneapolis, and I saw them at a festival, and I said, I really enjoy what you're doing, and can I join your group? And really, I'm English, and I'm still loving Scotland, and it's been a love affair for almost 20 years now that I've been part of the community. There are some Highland dancers, so if you have interest in Highland dancing, there in the Twin Cities, we have 3 pipe bands. Macalester College has a pipe band. There's the Twin Cities Metro Pipe Band, the Minneapolis Police Pipe Band also.
Yeah. And I'm a Shriner. In the Shriners, we have
Sure.
pipers too.
Absolutely.
I don't know if we have a pipe band though. I don't think we do.
I have not seen one at any of our fairs.
One other thing I bought at Edinburgh Castle was a chanter, which is of course
Yes.
what puts the sound out without the bags, and that's as far as I've gotten.
Well,
No bags.
that's okay. We have small beginnings. You still have more time.
Yes, well, hopefully. So, yeah, a lot of people aren't aware that bagpipes actually originated in the Middle East.
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah, and how Scotland never got hold of that, I have no idea.
Well, I think they were settled by the Celts, and it seems to me they were traveled all over Northern Europe, and so they probably saw something they enjoyed. That was fierce, because it does make a fierce noise, and it is used a lot for charging into battle.
Yes, I have tried our chanter with our dog, and as soon as the first notes come out, she hits the ceiling and runs. And runs. Well, it's an art. It really is.
It is.
Debra, I can't thank you enough
Yes.
for being here and telling us about Tartan Week, and we hope that everybody will avail themselves of things that are either new to them or not new.
Absolutely. Tartan Week is a big celebration, and it's a celebration for Minnesota. It's for an opportunity for all of us to gather and have families and see new aspects of our culture and enjoy everything.
Well, again, thanks so much. And Debra Crane Lance, appreciate it so much.
Thank you,
And I love
Barry.
this Minnesota tartan, too.
Yes.
And now it's the time, once again, for my shameless plug. It's my book, Barry ZeVan, My Life Among the Giants. It's available on Amazon. There's a lot in here that may surprise you. It's not a tell-all, but it tells all of things that are good, not bad. So please take a look. See you next time.